Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard's still a candidate for the Democratic nomination, isn't she? Been so long since I heard from Tulsi Gabbard.
So I'm asking you to join me. I'm asking you to stand with me to build a movement of peace at home and abroad that will fulfill the promise of America, of freedom, justice, equality, and opportunity for all.
Not only is she a veteran, 2 tours, active military, young age of only 37, just turned 38, I think. Woman of color, Hindu, House of Representatives, congressperson. Pretty long resume, extensive, as compared to some of the other people who get more limelight, like Mayor Pete. Yeah, she's the other veteran in the race who happens to also be a woman. Happens to also be a minority, happens to also be a congressperson. But she got on the wrong side of the political establishment, and now she is persona non grata.
And I cannot stand on the sidelines and do nothing when we have a clear choice that many people are not informed about. There is far too much at stake here to stand on the sideline and let politics get in the way of what's real. And what's real is war and the cost of war. I've seen and felt that cost firsthand through my service and my deployments to the Middle East. And I cannot stand on the sidelines and do nothing when we have a clear choice that many people are not informed about. There are very stark differences between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that people know what those differences are so they can at least make an educated and informed decision.
Well, yesterday I got an email from the Tulsi 2020 team that they sent out to all people who have donated to her campaign. Oh, guilty as charged. The mainstream press has a policy of either ignoring or smearing Tulsi. Can you guess why? Yeah, I got a few suggestions. I got a few thoughts I could go with. It's because Tulsi's directly taking on the chicken hawks in both parties, the corporate media and the military-industrial complex, who drive us into war for their own power and profit. As a major in the Army National Guard and the first female combat veteran to run for president, Tulsi's call for peace is uniquely powerful and credible. And that's why they're afraid of her. We have a way to counter the smears and cold shoulders from the mainstream media, but we need your help. So it goes on to ask you to donate to the campaign, because what they're going to attempt to do is talk to voters directly. I mean, anyone who's paying attention to this at all realize what's happening with Tulsi Gabbard is in itself identical, if not identical. It's a very close facsimile of what happened to Bernie Sanders in 2016, where the Democratic establishment decides, we really don't want you in this. It's amazing to see that we have, 21, 22 candidates? And somehow, in 2016, only like 4 people wanted to run. But now we got like 22 who want to run. And it wasn't as if they're, it wasn't as if, it was the threat of a Republican coming in office, but still everyone cleared the field. And you want me to believe that in this cycle, in this election, compared to the last election, all of a sudden people want to be president. You want me to believe that that's not coordinated by the DNC and the DCCC? That there isn't a word that goes out that directs people? Where was Cory Booker in 2016? Where was Kamala Harris? Don't tell me she wasn't just as ambitious. Beto O'Rourke said he's in it. He was born to be in it. He wasn't born to be in it in 2016. Come on. He wasn't born in 2016, was he? He'd be a little bit too young to run. So my point is, folks, they control who comes into this race. They control who gets publicity, who gets attention, and what kind of attention it will be. Tulsi Gabbard has been marginalized to a large extent. When she's given opportunity to speak and be heard, it's a smear.
Do you think Assad is our enemy?
Assad is not the enemy of the United States because Syria does not pose a direct threat to the United States.
What do you say to Democratic voters who watched you go over there, and what do you say to military members who have been deployed repeatedly in Syria, pushing back against Assad?
People who have been deployed to Syria have been there focused on their mission, which has been to defeat ISIS. Our troops have not gone to Syria to wage yet another costly, destructive regime change war. And many troops I hear from express frustration at the fact that our country continues to wage senseless, costly regime change wars, followed by nation-building missions, leading to situations like we see in Afghanistan. So many examples of our troops being deployed, their lives put on the line, without understanding what the clear mission or objective is and how that mission actually serves the security of the American people in the United States.
Which I think a lot of Americans would agree with you there. But again, going back to Assad, Assad is not an enemy. Is he an adversary of the United States?
We have to look to who poses a threat to the United States and the American
I understand that, but there are a lot of people who don't pose a direct military threat to the United States who consider themselves to be adversaries of the United States. Vladimir Putin poses or considers America to be an enemy. We consider Russia to be an adversary. I'm just asking you, do you consider Assad to be an adversary of the United States?
When I look at whether it's Syria or Turkey or Russia or China or other countries in the world, I look at what are their interests and are their interests counter to our interests.
So what would you say he is to the United States? If you cannot say that he's an adversary or an enemy, what is Assad to the U.S.? What is the word?
You can describe it however you want to describe it.
I want to know how you describe it.
My point is that whether it is Syria or any of these other countries, we need to look at how their interests are counter to or aligned with ours.
Are Assad's interests aligned with ours?
What are Assad's interests?
Assad seems interested in the slaughter primarily of his own people, in part. I mean, how does that line up? Survival, yes.
Exactly.
Well, he also
and he seems to be willing to go to great ends to do that.
He also uses weapons of mass destruction on his
adversary
as well.
I mean, we can talk about all these things. My point here is...
Is it important to talk about these things?
That
he uses chemical weapons on his own people?
Of course, of course. It's important to talk about how our military is being used, what it is costing them, what it is costing the American people, and whether or not those missions, those objectives serve the security of the United States and the American people.
So do you think...
The smearing of Tulsi Gabbard is what it is, folks. The way to combat smear, there's only one thing, only one solution to it, and that is more exposure. So we need to give more exposure to Tulsi Gabbard's campaign and to her message, one of peace, that is very unique. One of only a few candidates that is discussing peace. Tulsi Gabbard, go to Tulsi2020.com. Chip in, be a part of it. We want to get her to the 100,000 mark, number of donors. I would never encourage you to do anything that was illegal, but I would encourage you to spread the word. I would encourage you to help your friends see the benefit of having a Tulsi Gabbard, at least one candidate on the debate stage who's anti-regime change war, that's always against dropping bombs and sending drones on innocent brown people. Might be a good idea. All right? So let's do that. The only way to combat this smear, this smothering of Tulsi Gabbard is to fight back with exposure. So let's do what we can in independent media and regular folks at home.
The United States cannot continue to be in a position thinking that we can be the policemen of the world, spending trillions of taxpayer dollars coming out of our pockets, coming out of our communities, to go and launch these wars that we've seen in Iraq and Libya and Syria have caused so much suffering. This cost is something that we cannot accept. We need to end these regime change wars, end this new Cold War and nuclear arms race we are in, and bring the trillions of dollars that we are spending on these wars and these weapons
and invest them in our people, in our communities, by doing things like providing health care for all, by making sure we get a quality education for our kids, by making sure we're fixing the broken infrastructure in this country, by actually investing in our future.